Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the 7th anniversary stage or 7th Annie stage of the Dokkan Chronicles event. Now, like I kind of mentioned in a couple previous videos, I think these events get easier as we get access to more and more units. So I think the more we go through the anniversary stages, the more units we get access to, the increased number of units and teams you can make, the easier these are going to get, especially for newer players. The earlier stages are quite restrictive, being only SSRs and units from 1st, 2nd, 3rd anniversary. A lot of those units need to be super easy aid. A lot of those units need to be easy aid. And so for new players who are just picking them up on banners or haven't played in a while, there could be a lot of work that you need to put in those teams to make them like super duper viable. As you move along from like the 4th anniversary onwards, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, I think things start to get easier. Although the bosses get harder, I think they start to get easier because you get access to more and more teams, and I think because of that you tend to have a bit of an easier time. By having access to more characters, more leads, more teams, more easy A's, more Dokkan Awakenings, more regular units that can handle the heat, I think you tend to have a better time. So for me, I went and I did a kind of a movie heroes style team. Obviously, one of the missions that we have to complete is using a unit of each type. So you need to have 1 strength, 1 tech, 1 int, 1 physical, and 1 AGL character. And yeah, I think besides that, otherwise these anniversary Dokkan Chronicle missions are not too hard. Obviously your main incentive for completing the Dokkan Chronicle missions is to obviously get the tickets. The tickets can then be exchanged for some stones, but also can be exchanged for wallpapers, Kais, lots of other great resources as well. So there's an incentive for players to obviously do the event. I think a lot of them are stages that players should be able to handle. I don't see it being anything too crazy, like it's not too difficult or anything like that. Feel free to use items. There's no item missions or anything like that. I just use items to make my life simpler and easier. Obviously if you want to go crazy, no item run these stages, I mean, it is what it is. They're not that hard, which is why I don't really feel they're even worth no item running. So yeah, you can just kind of go with it, do what you want to do, see how things go, and I'm sure everything will be fine. So in terms of this one, for this 7th anniversary, we have a couple phases that we need to deal with, and then obviously there's a few mechanics we need to be mindful of. So we start with Frieza, we go into Bardock, we go into Goku and Vegeta. Frieza and Bardock are not too bad. Honestly, they're about 40 million, 60 million health. They fire 1.1 million in supers, 1.2 million in supers. You're standard like immune to this, immune to that, attack lowering, defense lowering, sealing, stunning, etc, etc. But because of their health pools, they're not that much of a problem. The big issue that you're going to find, at least for me that I found, is the length of the event. So as with all the other Dokkan Chronicle stages, the stage reduces damage that falls below a certain falls above a certain threshold. So for example, if you were to do 14 million damage, you would only register 10 million damage. If you were to do 28 million damage with an attack, you would only register 10 million damage. So what that does is it makes even relatively small health pools become relatively inflated, because you're relying more on the frequency of attacks that exceed that amount. So the fastest way to do the event would be to have 100 attacks that all do 11 million damage, rather than having 3 attacks that all do 30 million damage. Because ultimately the more attacks you do that exceed the threshold, faster you're going to be able to defeat the boss. Just makes sense. The big issue, like I said, is that the bosses can then be inflated a little bit, especially in terms of their health pool, because of the difficulty of just hitting attacks all the time over that threshold, especially as a new player. Probably don't have a whole team of absolutely Chad-like units, so it can be a struggle. The big thing When building your team, focus on crit, obviously focus on attack stats and damage. The bosses scale relatively well. I think the Goku and Vegeta hit for 1.4 million, which nowadays isn't actually much. So nowadays, 1.4 million super is not as threatening as it was back in the day when I think the Fighting Legend Goku event had like a 400k super, and that was terrifying. That was like, wow, that's going to end my run. So yeah, it's a very interesting situation, but yeah, they're not classified as super hard bosses, although some players may obviously struggle depending on, I guess, when you start a Dokkan and your resources and options that you have. The Goku and Vegeta stage is definitely very long. The stage literally has like a ton of health, and because of that, it requires so many super attacks to get through that realistically, like I said, your best bet is just to get units that just do multiple super attacks. Like, they take so long to get through. It is really crazy. Their phase was like the whole length of like the other two phases plus more. It was like double the length in terms of like straight time that it took. And it wasn't because it was particularly difficult. It was just literally because like they're reducing damage so much that like you can't really do anything about it. So yeah, I'd say aside from that, there wasn't anything too complex here that you need to worry about. There wasn't any like mechanics or anything that you had to be too concerned about. They hit hard-ish with a 1.4 mil super, but they don't absolutely break your back. They're not firing like a 4 mil super. They don't crit. They don't do anything funky like that. So for the most part, you should be fine. It's just the length of time. So just be prepared. Bring a team that can fire multiple super attacks. Try and get a lot of damage out in those turns to make the event easier on yourself. And yeah, if you're a new player or someone, just bring an item or so. Top yourself up on health just in case. Some emergency items just in case you catch a bad super here or there. But yeah, any like semi-top team will be fine here. Bye.